It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy's here. Alex is here. Jason's here. The whole gang is here. We're going to have Jason's longer-term review of the Vision Pro. Andy's got a really good pick, the return of a very famous to-do app. We also talked to Alex Lindsay about the Super Bowl graphics. There's a whole lot more to come. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 908, recorded Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Crisco and Karo. This episode brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement, thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial, LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we get together to talk about the latest news from the Vision Pro. From Apple. We do have some, inevitably Vision Pro conversations. It's going to dwindle, though, over time. And in a few months, you'll forget it even came out. Mr. Jason Snell's here, sixcolors.com. His Vision Pro review is out. Did you watch the Super Bowl on Vision Pro?
And thousands. No, I watched the Super Bowl on my couch with my wife on our 4K TV, and we were just fine. So
that's what. By the way, that's why the guy at Tom's Guide stopped watching it in his Vision Pro. He said his dog barfed on the couch. Mark Spoonauer. And after his dog barfed on the couch, he realized maybe I should pay attention to my son, who is sitting right next to me. What? Yeah. You want something? Also here, Andy Iannacco, WGBH in Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. I just wanted to ask you, I should have done this before we actually started. What does your mom charge for studio space? Because the snow's coming down, the wind's picking up, baby. I might lose power. I might need to go to a different studio.
Run over to the house. Yeah, it's got apparently a huge snowstorm coming your way.
I like this idea. It's the Twit New England house studio. We'll just set that up there, and anyone can go.
You know who's in the neighborhood who has a very nice podcast studio is the former host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, Lou Maresca. And in fact, he told me when I visited my mom, he said, "You want to come over and use the studio?" I said, "That's fine, but I'll let you know." And you stay in touch. How many feet are out there right now?
I actually had to go out an hour ago just to say that I was out in this winter wonderland because it is just so damn New England,
it's beautiful,
villagey, picturesque. Yeah. So we got about 6 to 8, still coming down pretty hard. We're supposed to get 8 to 10. It shifted like south. But it's not necessarily, we're not getting constant high wind. That's usually what you worry about. Yeah. And it's not terribly wet, so I don't think we'll get any power problems. But nonetheless, the thing is, like, you and I grew up in New England. Like, we're used to the idea of, we get these beautiful snowman building snowfalls, like, at least once a month, when it seems like when we were kids. And now it's like, oh, look, here's the one that we're going to get through the entire winter.
Yeah, it really warmed up quite a bit. Here's Dick DiBartolo's picture of Riverside Park in New York City, where I used to play in the sand and then the snow. And also with us, Alex Lindsay. I watched your dissection of the Super Bowl graphics this morning.
We had a good time.
Really is it? You know what it does? They're so subliminal when you're watching the game. You don't really appreciate the stuff they're doing until you watch Alex dissect it, and it's like, wow.
That's how I got into doing graphics for TV 30 years ago. was I would take the graphics from a high-end show and I would literally go through it frame by frame and then just reproduce it. And I would just get it to where it looked identical, and it was just so I could learn how to do it. You know, it was, and so
although 30 years ago,
for a long time,
the graphics
not the same.
Were very cheesy.
So good now. I mean, the graphics on the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl, FIFA, and the Olympics. Those are the big three, right? That's where you see, and really the Olympics and the Super Bowl are the big two that you just see this incredible amount of money being spent on graphics. And just some of the art direction, and CBS was no different.
Your video has now been blocked by the NFL, so I'm glad I watched it live.
Is it blocked?
Yeah.
Oh, usually it just gets flagged.
Yeah, I like the thumbnail. You had the slime from the Nickelodeon version, which I couldn't bring myself to watch, although I wish I had. Now I'm so depressed.
Well, that gives everybody a reason to watch these live.
Yes, because they're gone. Yeah. This is the Cowboys game, but wow, that slime monster is pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Are you feeling okay, Jason? I know there's been some black crepe hung around our house.
Yeah, it's my wife has a saying, because we have been taking guests to college football games for years over in Berkeley, and the saying is, if you want a guaranteed happy experience at the end, don't do sports. That's not what it's about.
There's a winner and there's a loser almost all the time.
There's always going to be. I am happy that it was an exciting game and it went down to the last, and the fact is whoever lost it was going to have a litany of regrets, because both teams made enough mistakes that any one of them would have changed the entire complexion of the game. So it happens, right? And when I was growing up, they won 5 Super Bowls, so I really can't complain too much.
I wanted number 6.
Sure.
I was fixated on the missed extra point, because it's just like such a little dumb mistake,
right. But it changed everything, right?
It changed the whole game.
Have kicked that. And to the credit of the telecasters, they said a lot has happened since then when they brought up because it's like, oh, we wouldn't have gone into overtime. And it's like, well, that's not true, because they were down 4, so they wouldn't have kicked the field goal. They would have gone for a touchdown. It would have put them up instead. Like, there's a whole, you can't do the woulda, coulda, shoulda after that.
Yeah.
And there were some fumbles and some interceptions, and a ball hit the back of someone's foot. Like, there's so many things that happen.
That guy's going to have a bad month.
He's gonna miss a lot of short putts for the next month.
That was a tough one. That was really a tough one. Anyway, enough of that. It's over. It's done. Here's to next season, where we won't, in fact, have anywhere near the same quality team. So it's just pretty much that was our shot. Now it's lost, and I'm so sad. How about that Vision Pro? Cheer me up. You had your review up on 6colors.com.
I mean, I feel if people like reading long reviews of computer hardware, they should read it, because it's 8,000 words about my thoughts about the Vision Pro.
And he counted every one as he went, by the way.
all the podcasts that I'm on, I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. That all helped inform what I was thinking about the product. But the short version of it, if there can be one for an 8,000 word review, really is that it reminds me of the early days of personal computers, where they were expensive. You bought it not because it was practical, but because it felt like it might be the future, and you wanted to get a glimpse of it. And that everybody was, well, this is a far more sophisticated product than an Apple II Plus was. The fact is, it's still an expensive tech product in search of an application, and not like an app, but like literally like applied. How do I use this to get something done? And I think, like those early personal computers, Apple is putting this out there and figuring it is the future, and we will figure out what you do with it, but we might as well ship it. And I get the very same vibes of every computer salesman in 1980 who was like, oh yeah, recipes will be great for this thing that in today's dollars is $5,000, right? Like, yeah, you'll do that. And it's like, I don't know. It's impractical, but a big swing. And I like a lot of the things that they've done. And then there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to look back and we're going to be like, what was that? And it is, as we said last week here, a 1.0 operating system. And I love a good 1.0 operating system, because it's so fascinating of like, Apple has been so iterative for so long with their operating systems and their hardware and all of that. And this is just weird and new, and you can see the places where the paint hasn't dried, and I love that about it. It's exciting to see something this strange from Apple.
I thought that was a good analogy to compare it to the Apple II or the Commodore 64 or the VIC-20 or whatever. It is very much kind of like that. There is a difference, though. Back then, that was the personal computer. There was no other personal computer. There's no other way to do that computing in your house. Today, there are many, many other choices you could make that would accomplish much the same thing as the Vision Pro.
Although I would argue that what the Vision Pro will ultimately be great for is not something that the other things are for, right? Like I think if that's all it is, I will be disappointed. If all it is like an iPad replacement, like if for it to succeed, I think it does need to do something that you can't currently do. And I don't know what that is. Like there are a bunch of choices, and some of them might be better or some of them might be worse. I did have somebody tell me, well, yeah, but they weren't that different. We had typewriters back in the 70s. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not going to litigate how different computers were in the 70s, but anyway, I think to your point, I agree.
I happily bought an Atari 400, yeah. But knowing full well the very severe limitations, but that was a personal computer I could have on my desk, and there was no other way to go that way. So,
well, I would say, like when I got the Apple IIe, no one else in the house used it. It's not like someone else had some other use for it.
Yeah.
Like it was just this random thing that I sat there.
And it wasn't very useful.
But it wasn't.
You had to type in stuff from a magazine.
And you basically, you were just kind of feeding that in. I will say that I keep getting surprised by the Vision Pro in the sense that I'll complain about something one day, and the next day, like I was complaining about the personas. And then on Friday, I spent like an hour talking to a friend, over FaceTime, and we were sitting there sharing USDZ models and sharing photos and doing other things and looking at each other and like, let me send you this, let me send you that. We were looking at a bunch of things, and it wasn't because we were trying to experiment with it. We were talking about those models.
You were actually using it. Yeah.
I was actually using it, and it was totally, and I couldn't believe when I finished it, we had been sitting there talking for an hour. And there was some point where his persona was no longer, I wasn't really thinking about it anymore, and I think that was an interesting translation, because before that I hadn't really liked the idea. I was like, I'm never going to use FaceTime, and I was like, okay, maybe I will. Like maybe I'll use this more often, because it's the interaction between the graphics and me talking to him. I'm not trying to figure out, like I'm literally just sending him over things, and then we're both we were looking at those things and rotating them around and talking about it, and that was much more seamless than it is in any other platform right now. And so I think that kind of thing is going to be really interesting. And I think that, again, I would say we probably have seen between now and we're probably seeing 20% of what we're going to see between now and the end of June. So
wow.
When we're making decisions, I think we're going to see a lot happening over the next couple months. I think that WWDC is probably going to be a pretty big year for Apple.
There was a point released that fixes that problem of if you forget your PIN, so that you can reset the Vision Pro. You don't have to go into the Apple Store. But there's a lot more coming in 1.1, including improved avatars. Although it sounds like, Jason, you had the same experience as Alex. Once you're actually in the you did a podcast in it. Once you're actually in it, you kind of forget the uncanny valley.
Yeah, I think that it's so easy to make fun of those digital personas because they look uncanny, because they do. But and I'm not denying that. I guess what I'm saying is, once it's somebody and you're having a conversation with them and you hear their voice and you give it a few minutes of context, I do think it all kind of like falls away. So there's an initial like, oh, this is weird, but I think you get over it pretty fast. Yeah, they totally need to be better and less uncanny, and a whole litany of other things about ways that they need to improve and give people more options. But I will say, I went into it, I was really repelled by the first time I saw a digital persona, and I thought, with somebody I know, and I'm focusing on our conversation, it works in that, for me at least, it works in that scenario where once I'm talking to one of my friends for 5 minutes, I'm just talking to my friend, and the persona is it's fun. My brain is like, okay, we'll let that one through. That's actually your friend.
Yeah, I kind of would expect that. Is it better than FaceTime? I mean, like normal FaceTime?
I think it's better than FaceTime, if for no other reason than you can't see yourself. And so you aren't checking to make sure
look at yourself.
Your angle is right, and it's not just like vanity. It's also like, am I in frame? Am I like, how do I?
Right.
And with Vision Pro, you don't use it, which we should probably do that anyway. I'm literally staring at myself right now while we're talking, right? But at the same time, there's something nice about that part of it. So I think it's a good first start, and then you got to start somewhere. But they're not as laughably bad as you might think from like a still or even a video of someone you don't know. Right. I think it's different when you're in it.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, but I think that the $3,500 price tag, as much as it's keeping most people out of this, either because they actually can't afford it or because it's way more than they want to risk, that might work out to be an advantage, because it really is putting it in the right perspective, that this is not necessarily, they are selling it in Apple stores, but they are not intending this as a mass market consumer device, not yet. And if the price doesn't put you off, you are probably the right person to buy this.
Well, good luck, because I have a feeling it's going to get a longer and longer lead time to get one. Although, if there are returns, this is the week they'll be returned.
Yeah, and there will be some, and I wonder what they'll do to refurb those, or if they'll, but yeah, I think it works in Apple's favor that this is a low volume product, right? Because it's a 1.0. People who want it are going to be able to get it, but it's good, I think, if most people who might one day buy this do not have to experience, staring into the maw of a 1.0 OS release, right? Yeah. I think that may be okay.
Yeah. And I think that the folks that did dive into it, that bought it, are the kind of folks that they knew what they were getting.
They knew what they were doing.
For the most part, they knew what they were getting themselves into. Like, I get to be, part of what I get to do is be part of that.
We're the weirdos.
Yeah, I get to be the gamma tester, and we make an impact on how the development goes by commenting it, using it, and looking at what works.
Anthony Nielsen, you're going to turn yours in. He bought one with his own personal money. You have a few more days. He's trying to decide, I think. I don't know. And we'll get Micah to package his up, because we don't want to keep that one. Good on you, all you early adopters. It certainly was good for YouTube performers. Millions of views right out of the box. So it's almost a YouTube subsidy act kind of a device. It's been very successful.
We talked about the Vision Pro last Tuesday before this show, and it is even just for my little website, my little YouTube channel, it's the highest viewed regular one ever. Yeah, so
not surprised.
Everybody that way. Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, that tells me that real people are very interested in the platform. They want to know more about it, right?
Yeah, and that's the right. Like, we were talking about that ad that Apple did with the people putting things on their face and all that. It's like, I feel like Apple is really trying to get this to be a thing that people are interested in,
right?
But in this is the future. What is Apple, baking up for us, right? Yeah. Apple very rarely works in public. They generally, right? All their R&D is behind the scenes, because this product is so cutting edge. They are essentially developing it in public at this point, and I think that's what they want the general population to see, is just, the wizards at Apple, they've got a crazy thing, and what's it like now, and where's it going? That serves them incredibly well, because it is so early, they can't really ship that many of them. And if you talk to somebody behind the scenes at Apple, they would probably admit to you that, of course, this is a 1.0, and where is it going? So I think it all works in their favor. The more you've got people like YouTubers popularizing sort of like getting the general sense of it, because that's all Apple, I think, really wants, is people to get the gist of it and then wait for their moment to strike, which is not now.
Yeah. I did note there were no Vision Pro ads on the Super Bowl. In fact, I don't think there were any ads for Apple stuff at all.
There was just a halftime show.
Yeah, that was the ad. It was the halftime show. But
that was the ad. What I was curious about is to see, and this won't happen for a little while, is whether we get some snippet of that halftime show shows up in the Vision video pile. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, here's some stereo video. I know if I was shooting the halftime show, I'd have an R5 in there somewhere, capturing, or some kind of thing. I'd be capturing some of that in 3D, and then making a decision about whether it worked or not. And then if it worked, putting out a 10-minute or a 5-minute piece that is a little, Apple's been kind of, we all knew something was going to happen with MLS, in that test thing, they're showing right above the net, and it's compelling. so I think it's going to be a really interesting. So I'd be surprised if I kind of would be surprised. I would feel like something went wrong if we don't see some stereo footage show up for the Vision from the halftime show. Just like a little clip of it, not a big piece.
Alex, there's something that I don't know about. That does it when it's recording spatial video? Does it do it in a universal format that could be posted elsewhere? Because I'm wondering, like, there are going to be people who are going to make really great spatial videos, but there's no YouTube per se in which to post it and share it. Yeah.
So what I was going to say, I think that if they shot something in the Super Bowl, they wouldn't have shot it with a phone. They'd shoot it with something that's what we call side by side stereo. Sure. So I think that the SBS would be done for that. If you're shooting it, it's an MV-HEVC, and there are some tools. There's one called, I think, Spatially. There are, and a couple other tools that people are putting together that it's a little easier to go from side by side to MV-HEVC than it is from MV-HEVC to side by side, because the way that the phone works and the way that it's being sent to Vision is that you have one eye that's the left eye that is the hero eye, and all the data's there. And the second eye is the right eye, and it's just the delta between the left and the right. That means extracting that back out to side by side is not as clean. Going from side by side to that is a little bit cleaner, and because it's also more efficient and it's more portable. So what's going to happen is that when you're editing it, you can edit it as if it was just 2D footage, but when you send it back out, it's going to appear 3D. So it's a little easier to work with than side by side. But if I was going to shoot something right now that mattered, I'd still shoot side by side and convert it to MV-HEVC, and there's a fair number of converters that are kind of working in that area. They're not real time yet. So one of the things that we haven't seen, I think that the company that is the closest to being able to do this in real time is a TEM out of France, and they always jump on everything first, and nothing works for a while. But anyway, it's a good start. Yeah, that's the one that's close to getting real time 2D side by side into MV-HEVC.
I was thinking more even simpler on the lines of I shot my niece's like 11th birthday party, cutting the cake, and of course because all my brothers and sisters and cousins also have Vision Pros, I want them to be able to see it too. Like how
they can see it. You can send it to. You can just send a video to somebody and they can see it. Yeah. The main thing is that if you and Oculus did or Meta did announce that they are supporting they've got an update to either support or convert. I haven't looked at it specifically yet, the MV-HEVC. So Meta is going towards the ability to support that. The true conversion to side by side is a little tricky to do well. There are some tools that are doing it. My understanding is I haven't tried to go that direction. Most of my stuff has been playing with side by side to MV-HEVC. Sure. And I will say it looks okay. Like I shot the same footage with my daughter in 4K. She's just playing the piano. 4K, and then I shot her playing the same thing in the 3D, and I'd rather have the 4K version. It was, it was a little soft, and it didn't, there's a problem with motion blur in any 3D. The motion blur doesn't quite work, and so it's kind of one of those things where it looks a little cut out in certain ways, and so I think that there's still a lot of room to grow there. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably, if I ever get my hands on a Generation 1, it's not going to be for like months. And one of the first things I want to go diving to is, let's see the Super Bowl thing. And I hope that there's going to be provision for, hey, here's a section of the iTunes video store that has spatial video. Again, not even necessarily stuff that was shot with like Alex Lindsay great cameras, but stuff. Even there's every now and then Apple does come out with hey, here's a shot on iPhone video. Like there's a Lunar New Year video they did for that's 15, really cool video. That's a little short film that's 15 minutes long. And it'd be nice if there's like a section of the store of, hey, here is like content and for. There is now. In the Vision, there's a shelf. There's only like 4 things on it or 5 things on it, but there's a shelf that is the spatial videos. That's where the Alicia Keys is sitting, and that's where the demo the demo kind of sits at the end, and there's the Highline example, and there's a one with some rhinos. so anyway, yeah, so good. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
So Apple
Jason,
did release a privacy document, which I commend them for writing it in English and being kind of very clear about the privacy. They point out we built Vision OS from the ground up to protect your privacy, and this I think is important, the privacy of the people around you. Apple Vision Pro is the first Apple product that uses advanced always-on camera streams of your eyes and the world around you to enable spatial experiences. They talk about how much data they collect, for instance, in mapping your environment. But it's a little unclear that whether they send that back. Most of it's on device, right?
Yeah, most of it's on device. But one of the most important things they're doing is that there are privacy elements. There's personal data that we haven't even considered, and the most basic is, where are you looking? Even if you don't action on something by clicking on it, where are you looking? You know that when entertainment for VR becomes a really big thing, even if it's not 3D, even if it's just here's a flat video watching Disney Plus, they want to know, where is your attention, and is your attention wandering? And did you look at this product that was a product placement on the back shelf? So it's a really, really big deal that they spell out that to keep your here's a quote: to keep your thought process private, where you look before you interact with content is not shared with Apple or the apps you're using and does not leave your device. Similarly, because Apple Vision Pro blends digital content with your physical space on device, the apps you use cannot access information about your surroundings by default.
By default, but
that's important.
With permission, apps can access surrounding data, including everything in your house within 5 meters of you.
Right, but it's really interesting how they've done this. Where they know the geometry and what's in your house, but they only share with apps a very limited conception of that, if anything. But yeah, you there's a permission for that essentially to get an app. And I've had like 2 apps ask because they want to be able to place something on a table or something. It's so. I mean, I like it, and also keep in mind, like the eye tracking stuff is also completely separate from. Like they're not going to let you get your eye tracking data passed on to third-party apps. It's just not in there because it's. I mean, this is a huge privacy issue if that data can get mined by web pages and apps and all of that. And they
say very clearly, we don't share information about who may be physically nearby with the apps and websites you use or with Apple. I am a little concerned about this full space permission. Because you said you only a couple. They say that, for instance, Encounter Dinosaurs asks for full space permission, so the dinosaurs can burst through your physical space. But at that point, you're sending to that app images of your house, everything around you for 5 meters, 15 feet.
Is it images or is it just the 3D planes?
The mesh, yeah.
I think it's just the mesh.
Yeah, so it can't.
By giving an app access to surrounding data, the app can map the world around you using a scene mesh, recognize objects in your surroundings, determine the location of specific objects in your surroundings.
Right. So it's not getting pictures. These apps aren't getting pictures. They're getting a mesh of the objects and.
How does it recognize objects if it's not getting pictures?
Yeah.
The Vision OS is recognizing the objects and passing an object marker basically to the app. The app doesn't get the actual full picture. Like they thought this through. Like they want a level of abstraction between the OS and reality where the OS is only passing through a 3D space that's marked up to the app to process.
Yeah, the paper seems to be making a regular point that they do their security policy and privacy policy is as such that developers don't need to get more access to your personal data than it absolutely needs. So for instance, if the app needs to know that, hey, here is a countertop, here's a table in front of you because that's where the chess pieces are going to go, it doesn't necessarily need to know what is the texture of that surface.
So it doesn't.
What's under? There's
no way to say there's a Samsung S24 Ultra to your left. That's not going to go back to anybody.
If it asks for permission, I'm sure it could give it. They said they also in the document said that they're updating the privacy nutrition label in the App Store. So now it also includes for Vision apps head movement, hand movement, and your surroundings. So supposedly the inference from that would be that if there's an app that absolutely needs that, yes, they can get it, but that will be part of the things where it's going to like Jason experienced. It will ask you specifically if it needs access to this. So
yeah, it's up to you not to give it permission. I mean, the reason this is important is this could be the ultimate privacy invasion device 100%. With 14 cameras on it.
Well, and I think that's why Apple on all their devices is spending so much time and energy on all the things in the entire chain to keep things private, because they're releasing products that are very privacy dependent. And so I think that a lot of their view of things, of wanting things to be locked down and private and controlled, is very much connected to a big part of their business model for the next decade, is giving you things that you do not want to share with others.
How do we verify? You just have to trust them.
Well, I mean, I think that the thing is it's the verification is mostly that it's the end of their business model if they fail. Like, they're building, they're all in, and it's the and so they it's within their what would they want the data for? They're already making money on selling you hardware. They don't need to sell your privacy.
And the developers will tell us too, because you can write an app that asks for all those permissions and figure out everything that you get. And I'm sure people will do that, and they'll be able to explain what they get. And but yeah, I appreciate that Apple's doing this, because to Alex's point, they have to. It is their entire brand. And to your point, theoretically, this device can map literally every object in your house and every person in your house and know where everything is. And it does to a certain degree, but it's holding that on device and at arm's length from apps, which is as it should be from Apple.
Yeah. They needed to get ahead of this. The Washington Post had an article from someone who, from the reading it, I don't believe that they actually had used the device yet, warning that this could be the biggest privacy nightmare ever. And rather than saying that these types of devices could potentially, in 5 years' time, become as bad as that, it was basically casting aspersions, it seemed, on the Vision Pro, which it didn't seem to deserve at that point.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if people don't want an Amazon Echo in their house, I can see why they want a Vision Pro in their house.
Well, it's a good example. Is I have for all the bobbles and the limitations of Siri, I have some Apple speakers in my house. I do not have an Amazon Echo or Google stuff in my house. I feel like that information is much more secure with Apple than it would be with other products.
Yeah. As always, if you want Google to sync your calendars across all devices and give you reminders and hook up to other apps that can also hook up to reminders, you're going to have to let them know what your calendar information is about. So long as Google is transparent about how they use that data, so long as you have evaluated that transaction and you think that you're getting as much or more than what you're giving up, that's fine.
The article you're referring to is an opinion piece from Jeffrey Fowler, their technology reporter. Apple's new Vision Pro is a privacy mess waiting to happen. And this was written before, 2 weeks ago, before not only before the release of the Vision Pro, but before the privacy paper that Apple just put out. So
you got to get it out there in front of reality so you can piece it in.
Yeah. I don't think it's unfair. I mean, look, first of all, I'm not a privacy hawk, obviously. I can't be. But, there are people who do care a lot about this kind of stuff. There was concern, remember, about the robot vacuum cleaners like the Roomba mapping your house in order to do the vacuuming, and who gets that information. And in fact, that was the chief concern over Amazon buying Roomba, which is now off, partly because of that. So I understand the concern, and I'm not convinced Apple is the white knight it portrays itself as.
I don't think it's a white knight issue, though. I think this is it's a business model issue. Like, they've built a business model around privacy. It's how they make money. It's not a matter of them being good or bad. It's just them that they
sell ads against your information as on the iPhone as we speak. So they don't need that money.
Yeah, but I don't think that I don't think that they're not going to give up. They're not going to give up privacy, against what's in your house.
They do. With their first-party information they know about you, they use that to sell against you and to put ads up against you. They let other people do
first-party as well. Like, they're not taking that away from anyone. I mean, everybody has first-party.
Right.
Like, everybody on the iPhone has first-party.
No, again, I say, look, as I've said, I'm not a privacy hawk, and I've given up
but I would
completely.
Say, and I do.
But if you are, I think you should not necessarily blithely say, oh, well, Apple says it's okay, so I'm sure it's okay.
No, and I think, and I'll agree with you. I don't think that Apple should run ads on the. I think that's a huge mistake.
That's them saying we care more about the money than privacy.
Yeah, and I think that's a unforced error to run ads.
I agree 100%. But the fact is, they do it. So that's why you'll forgive me, but I view with a little skepticism what these are the words in this privacy policy are subject to interpretation. What is that full space permission giving a third-party developer? You say, oh, it's not. It's just it's a picture of a solid object. Is it a picture of an S24 Ultra or not? And that's what
it wouldn't have that. I can just tell you, it wouldn't have that resolution. Like it doesn't have that resolution. At least
it might say there's a phone there if it can get the shape.
It can't tell what kind of faucet you have or what kind of TV.
It might be able to tell what kind of faucet. That's two different things because a phone, all the phones are the same size.
They all look the same.
They're all the same, but a faucet, it would be hard for it to be precise, but it could probably get, it could probably see enough geometry where it could, you could start making guesses at it, but it probably wouldn't be enough.
I mean, I had a Roomba. I wasn't concerned about it sending information, even if it sent it off to Amazon. I don't really care, but people do. And I guess those people have already decided not to buy a Vision Pro. Yeah. That's probably the right answer is if you're worried, don't, it's an interesting point. Let's take a break, come back, more to talk about, including, I guess, a victory for Apple in the EU. But first, a word from our sponsor. Actually, this is a new sponsor I want to welcome. It's a watch face brought to you by DC Labs. It's an Apple Watch face called the Stress Face. And I happen to know that I'm a little stressed out right now, thanks to the Stress Face. Stress Face is a watch face. It shows your stress level throughout the day. It's using heart rate variability readings from your health kit data. So I see a graph. I also get a score, a simple 1 to 10 score. I am 10, a stress score right now on my one. The app is free, and I've got the free version on here, but for 99 cents a month, you also get some beautiful stress charts to see your long-term changes in stress. Also, a link to your calendar, which will show you which events are causing you the most stress. Stress Face. I'll show you the iPhone app because that's maybe a little easier to see than the watch face. This says I started good. You notice my days off are high stress, and my work days, Sunday and Wednesday, are low stress. So I don't know what that means. Stress Face captures data every 2 hours. You can also do a manual reading. In fact, what's great, they have on the Stress Face, they have some exercises you can do for meditation, reflection, breathing. These are great. These are very much useful in times of stress. To be able to quickly pop this up is fantastic. They also have a link to the Fitness Plus meditations, which is nice. Proven to increase your heart rate variability. You know that, right? Breathing meditations and lower your stress. High stress notifications once a day to help you take time out when you need it the most. Stress Face. We're all in a stressful world. Download Stress Face from the App Store for free today. I don't know if it's more stressful to know how stressed out I am, but or not. But it's nice to know that there's something I could do about it. Let's put it that way. Stress Face, your new watch face for your Apple Watch. I think that's our first Apple Watch app sponsor. I like that. We would like to see more of that. Thank you, Stress Face. All right. I might call you that, John Ashley. I might just call you Stress Face from now on because you're the one who takes the stress. I can relax while you do the stress.
Well, it's either Stress Face or Boy Producer.
Which would you prefer?
That's the thing.
They're pretty bad, both of them. Business Insider, I don't know whether to credit this or not, says the Vision Pro has a scary side effect. Seems like link bait. I'll let you guys throw this one out if you want. It may rewire our brains in some unexpected ways. There has been, the Air Force did studies on simulator sickness when they were training pilots in simulators, and they did say sometimes it takes as long as 24 hours to clear the effects, and that you shouldn't drive a vehicle. That's the Air Force's recommendation for 24 hours.
Yeah, I think the title is a little bit, quickening, but it does point to
yes. My stress face says it's a 10.
So the Virtual Human Interaction Lab at Stanford just released a paper like a week ago that is actually very, very interesting. It's only 50 pages long. It's called "Seeing the World Through Digital Prism: Psychological Implications to Pass-Through Video Usage and Mixed Reality." So
I'd like to see more of this.
That doesn't get too interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because it mostly summarizes all the academic papers that have been put out in the past 10 years on the effects of mixed reality, whether it's existing MetaQuest, whether it's existing HoloLens or night vision glasses, where someone's entire version of reality is coming through some form of video. And it summarizes all the things that other researchers have come up with some anecdotal stuff that is very, very specifically labeled as anecdotal. Like they had like 11 people, including members of their own team, with MetaQuest and with HoloLens. Obviously, they did not have access to.
It came out February 2nd, the day the Vision Pro came out. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent timing, boys.
Exactly right. They're trying to sell T-shirts too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's a good way. It's very valuable, I thought, because it gives you a good background as the sort of things they're going to have to keep an eye on. The conclusion per se they make isn't that, oh my God, we should ban the Vision Pro before it turns us all into cross-eyed people like in The Jerk with the optograb lens in the middle of their noses. But it is saying that that this is pretty well documented, that if you put somebody into a distorted version of reality, whether it is
let me read it actually. Let me read the actual conclusion. We conclude that the pass-through experience can inspire awe and lends itself to many applications, but will also likely cause visual after effects. We've heard anecdotal stories from a lot of Vision Pro users that happens. Lapses in judgments of distance, induce simulator sickness, and this is an interesting point they add, interfere with social connection. We recommend caution and restraint for companies lobbying for daily use of these headsets and urge scholars to rigorously and longitudinally study this phenomenon.
I think there's nothing wrong with academics saying, "Hey, we don't know a lot about this thing.
Right.
We should study it." And there is absolute truth in that. I think that particular web story is a little hyperbolic beyond the headline, but I think that we could all agree, and I've seen it. I mean, I've seen some people complain about visual effects. I for sure, after, it's not true anymore, but in the first week that I used this, just as with the Quest, actually, after you take it off, every 2D like computer monitor, your brain is like, oh, that's probably in 3D. I'll process that. And you're like, no, brain, don't do that. And everything looks a little weirdly not 3D for a while. But after a few days, our brains are just so good at this. I don't get that effect anymore. I don't have that effect. There's something in the story that I want to point out just because it made me roll my eyes so much, which is they're like, oh, it's got this ability to do erasure where it takes things that are in your world and it takes them out. And replaces them with like a window with a dinosaur in it. And then they said, but it could also be used to erase things. Like, what if it erased all pride flags?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, that's like, we're now in a science fiction dystopian novel, and it's not what this is about right now. So there's a lot of hype on all sides, but I cannot discount the fact that we should learn more about how this stuff affects the human brain. We totally should.
And to be fair, the paper itself doesn't get into anything like that at all. It is rigorously academic. It was really one of the sections that was really interesting to me was that there's this concept of social presence that the science looks at, which is the experience of emotional and psychological closeness to somebody who you're interacting with, and that these sort of mixed reality experiences often messes with your mind, that even though it's on video, even though this is 3D in front of you, your brain has a more difficulty identifying on a very, very low genetic level that this person you're talking to is actually real. And we're not talking about avatars or simulacrums. We're talking about, here is someone who is in front of you 5 feet away talking to you about whatever. And yes, you may not necessarily, and this is something that should be researched, you're not aware that you're interacting with this person differently. But if your emotional engagement and your empathy is at 93, if it means that now you're down to 84, that's significant.
They said specifically, we found something unexpected across multiple independent variables. Participants within each dyad, each two-person couple in their physical presence, who wore the AR headset during social interaction, reported feeling significantly less connected to their partners than participants who were not wearing headsets. In our field notes, social absence was common. People in the real world simply felt less real, especially for strangers. People appeared distant and blended into the background. Moreover, the limited field of view, remember, they're not using the Vision Pro here. They were using a MetaQuest 3, and it looks like a HoloLens.
Which actually I think has a wider, at least the Pro has actually a wider field of view, I believe, than the Vision Pro. The Meta Pro.
Oh, okay. The Vision Pro has higher frame rate, higher detail, less latency. So a lot of this stuff might be not as magnified.
They also say it was often embarrassing to interact with strangers while wearing a headset.
We're not ready to publish yet, but our preliminary findings are exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the right thing. The right way to treat it is we don't know much. We do know anecdotally. And if you've ever worn one of these, you know probably from personal experience, it does bend your mind for a little bit after you take it off.
Yeah, it's always interesting. Like years ago, I had this idea that, gee, for thousands of years, the history of written language, we've only written with the tool that we've used to write language with was one-handed. A stylus, a pen, something like that, and then the typewriter, and then the computer keyboard came along, and suddenly we're using both hands. Did that in any way affect how people form their thoughts and how they communicate through keyboards? Because now they're using the most, I was on this for a few months, and I found the right psychologist and the right scientist to take a look. I said, yeah, we looked at that a while ago, and it's nothing. But nonetheless, we're always afraid of like finding out years and years and years later that, so if you are playing hockey or any other contact sport, even any sort of a head hit is really, really bad and dangerous. What do we wish we had known before this became something that would become almost difficult, almost impossible to get rid of?
Yeah, and as Out of Sync is saying in our Discord, even corrective eyeglasses rewire your brain somewhat to see the world differently.
For sure, right? Anybody who's worn, like, I actually brought this up in I think maybe in my review, or maybe it was in a first look, how we get trained and our brains get trained. So like if you wear progressives, I have progressives that I wear. These are my computer glasses, but it's where there's reading at the bottom and distance at the top. You put them on, and I first wore them a couple years ago. It's weird, right? Because you can read in part of your vision and not, but very quickly your brain knows if you're reading, just tilt your head a little bit. And in the same thing in the Vision Pro, what I found is that especially with iPad apps where the touch target or the target is smaller, if it's in the corner of my vision, I can't be as precise on the Vision Pro because at the edge it seems less precise and the iPad targets are less precise. And I noticed that week 1. In week 2, what I've noticed is I just move my head a little bit and then I get the right target. And so that's a part of this too, is our brains get rewired, and it can be good, it can be bad. And as Andy was saying, I mean, isn't there there's some meme, I think it's a Futurama, where it's like, it was fine until it was The Simpsons, where your eyes fall out after 20 years, right? It's like that's not going to happen, but like it does rewire your brain, and that's why it's important for us to all think about it. But I am so impressed by the fact that we are capable of doing things like putting different fields of vision in your glasses, and after a few days your brain is like, I got it, I figured this one out, and you never think about it again.
They experiment, I think it was I don't remember how long ago it was, but they gave someone something that literally turned everything upside down. So literally, as long as they kept the glasses on, the world looked upside down, and within a couple of days everything looked right side up.
Well, the funny thing is you're doing that right now because the world through your the optics of your eyeball is upside down, and your brain is
so they did it, but they made it
normal.
And then I guess evidently it was worse when you took it off, when they took the glasses off, the headaches were much worse as the brain figured out how to rewire that again to flip it back.
But that illustrates one of the risks that we need to research. That eventually, right now, the resolution of the Vision Pro is not Retina level. It's not better than what the eye can perceive. It's not, as you guys have pointed out, like it's not like looking at a real 4K screen. It's really good, but it's not. At some point, they are going to be so good that, gosh, if I had $2,000, I can spend it on either a really good 4K, maybe 8K at that point, display, or I can spend the same amount of money on a virtual display that's a lot more portable and works in my apartment a lot better. Maybe I'll get that display. But now that you're using this for 7 hours a day, you knock off at work at 4:30. You say, "Oh, great! I've just time to meet my friends for dinner." You jump in your car. Are you aware that you don't see distances quite correctly? Are you aware that your brain has adapted to distortions in your field of view, or adapted to having a narrow field of view? And you think if you had not been using this for the past day, maybe you would not. Maybe you wouldn't have come so close to that person on the bicycle. That's the sort of thing. The question that needs to be asked.
As someone who wears glasses that aren't like super wraparound or anything else, I find that the field of view of the Vision Pro is not much different than my day-to-day life. Because there's a whole section of of the world that I don't really think about. My brain doesn't. I can still see it, but my brain doesn't process that because it's outside of the glasses. And so I think that's a little bit of it. I do think that oftentimes. Specifically with Stanford, if the veracity of I have to read this one to look at it, but if it's anything like the one that they wrote about Zoom, I'm not too worried. Like the Zoom one was so bad and so off that they wrote this long one near the beginning of COVID or whatever about Zoom, and it was, as someone who's done this for so long, it was just like having a child explain an aircraft. It was just, and I was just like, what are you talking about? And so I think that the only way we're going to know, unfortunately, is to do it. And, and the thing we have to remember is that we change things all the time. We were talking about earlier about we only wrote with one hand. Well, 99% of the world didn't read or write until 100 years ago. So like it was, so we just remember that it, as the human race, there's a lot of things, like one of the things that there was a study that I was looking at early on when I was doing research, and they were talking about how people who grow up in rural cultures, in Africa and in other places, oftentimes process a lot more data than folks that grow up in the city, because in the city we've learned over time to not pay attention to things. Like and for them, if you don't pay attention to everything, there might be something in the forest that might kill you, and so as a result, they have a tendency to pick up, and lots of details in design and so on and so forth, but they pay a lot of attention to their environment because it's life or death, and in the city, again, there's a lot of controls. And so I think we're constantly adjusting to all of those things. And none of this, and none of this is nearly as dangerous as corn syrup. And we've decided that's okay.
Wow.
Tie that all up.
Yes, that does. Let me tell you, everybody listening in Nebraska is very mad at you now, Alex.
I know they're mad, but man, corn syrup is so bad for you. And it's in
everything.
That's okay. It kills
my welcome our brand new sponsor, Karo syrup. Oh my God.
Oh, no. Oh God, yeah, remember? You actually used to be able to just buy Karo syrup. I guess you probably still can.
Still can?
That's how you make fudge, right? You need Karo syrup.
Corn syrup.
In the Renegade Badlands, you can. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Crisco and Karo, man, that's my diet. Apple has dodged a bullet with the EU. The probe, the EU's Digital Markets Act probe, determined that Apple's iMessage is not big enough to have to be interoperable, nor is Microsoft's Bing. Of all things, or the Edge browser and advertising service.
You're too small.
You're too small. We don't care. Go ahead, be as non-competitive as you want.
I think a lot of us. It would have felt really crazy. I don't know about Bing, but with iMessage, I mean, I just don't know anybody. I know when I say this, I get a bunch of people hitting me on Twitter saying,
"Yeah,
I use iMessages all the time in Europe, but I don't know anybody that does. Like everybody I deal with is all on WhatsApp, and so it's an odd thing.
Dr. D says Microsoft's going to appeal. No,
hey, come on,
hey man!
I remember when we were the big antitrust ones? Come on, harass us. Just so we can say that we've had an inquiry, please.
It doesn't mean that Apple's App Store is not being regulated by the DMA. It is, and obviously, but let's see, for Microsoft, Windows operating system, obviously, LinkedIn, obviously, for Apple, iOS is definitely big enough, the App Store and the Safari browser. So under the law, it's illegal for the firms that meet this test to favor their own services over those of rivals. They'll be barred from combining personal data across different services, prohibited from using data they collect from third-party merchants to compete against them, Amazon, and we'll have to allow users to download apps from rivals' platforms. March 7th is the day, and that's when we're all expecting to see the new iOS version that will feature an app store, but just for Europe. I wonder how many. Do you think anybody is going to do? I guess Epic has to, right? They made such a big deal about it. But do you think anybody will announce an app store on March 7th in Europe?
Not announce it. I mean, it's still going to take them a long time to develop it.
There's very little commercial benefit to it. You still have to pay Apple 27%. In fact, there's more hoops to jump through, not fewer. It's harder. You still have to get app approval. Yeah. I mean, it seems like Apple has made it as undesirable as possible. That's what Mozilla said about the browser.
They also attracted some attention for that. The chief regulator in the EU had an interview or a statement last week in which she said that she's not really sure that these companies are going to take compliance seriously, and that this is the fact that they said that they're in compliance means that okay, so now we have to check to make sure they are in compliance. And Apple, Google, Microsoft, all the rest of you, we could basically slap you very, very hard and tell you to go back and try again. So they're suspicious to say the least.
I suppose they could even find them. I mean, they could even.
Oh yeah.
They could even say you're in violation, right?
I guess it depends on whether. I think what Apple probably did is look at the actual act and said, "Is this? I think that they are trying to follow the letter of the law.
Yeah, is
They're
this
not
defensible?
As concerned about the spirit.
Yeah,
is it defensible?
Yeah, but was it Grouper who made that really, really great comparison where it's like Apple is making their own app store submission, just like developers, where okay, we think we're in compliance, but they could turn us down and we don't know why. But here's our first drop. That was so good.
Yeah, although it sounds like the way that this works is not that the EU says we reject your app. It's more like you do it and then somebody can complain. I don't know whether they sue or they file a complaint with the European Commission, but it is this nebulous thing where there's no green light that goes off. It's no like The Price is Right where you pulled the lever and it went ding, 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 ding if you were right. You just have to, which is kind of like what an app store submission is, right? Where you're like, what if I do this? Could I get in now? No, it's more like they're just going to do this and then we'll see what happens and there'll be a process to do it. But I do feel like my gut feeling is the danger is that Apple does this game so well that nothing changes, because that's going to be hard for the European Commission to swallow if nothing changes. So what they want is this. It feels like they did enough to satisfy what was going on, even if it makes, Epic and Facebook unhappy. That's sort of, I think, their preferred, that's their win, is it changes just enough to get the European Commission off their backs without actually making Epic Games and Facebook happy.
Well, and at minimum, it forces even Apple, who are the most petulant people in the world when it comes to trying to get them to do something that they are convinced that they shouldn't have to do. They're saying, well, now this is not something that you get to do what you want, and then maybe we will say that you shouldn't be doing that. This is the law of the land. This is actually happening. This is a real thing. So if you think that you can't at least anticipate these problems and at least make some form of compliance, you are sorely mistaken. So all these companies are going to at least do the least that they can possibly do, which sounds like a half more Norm T, but the fact of the matter is they used to have to do nothing. So I do think this is a step forward.
FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr says the FCC should investigate Apple's response to Beeper Mini. Carr said the FCC should look into whether Apple's move, quote, complies with the FCC's Part 14 rules. Those are rules about accommodating users with disabilities. I'm not sure. Is it a disability to have a blue bubble? I don't know. Not sure what he means there. Anyway.
Grasping.
Yeah. According to Part 14, advanced communication services like iMessage must follow rules to ensure they're accessible. By putting a stop to Beeper Mini, Carr argues, this is from The Verge, Apple may violate the FCC's rule that says providers shall not install network features, functions, or capabilities that impede accessibility or usability. This is the low contrast green bubbles makes it difficult for people with low vision or difficulty from seeing or picking up those messages. Wow.
Yeah, this is one of the two Republican commissioners. I think
he has said strange things in the past. This is not.
It just really undermines his credibility, and more than anything else, it's not going to go anywhere. But it really undermines people thinking that he's actually qualified for what he's doing. I think that's and I think that when you go after the wrong things that are just obviously like, it's just
FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel has not told The Verge if the agency plans to investigate. The Verge does point out it seems like Carr is concerned about more than just the Beeper Mini debacle, though. He also mentioned Apple's impact on the augmented and virtual reality spaces. Really? Already? And criticized the walled garden Apple puts around its products and services. I think there are potentially negative consequences if Apple perpetuates a world in which it treats its own proprietary technologies one way and degrades the performance of competitive ones.
Yeah. I have no inside information on this, but I suspect that somebody dropped their iPhone 15 on a toilet on the third day they had it, and the store refused to fix it for free. I'm guessing. Or at least I'm going to put that out there as a possibility.
You might be right.
Talk about petulant. This is overreaching.
So there you go. There are times, and I have to admit, there are times the real problem is that when you're a commissioner, and we have unfortunately a lot of representatives and folks in the government that feel free to throw their ideas out, like what they should make laws about. And, and unfortunately, a lot of people make intelligence decisions about them that are hard to get rid of later. It's kind of like, well, you proposed this like 2 years ago, so I'm not going to take you seriously ever. And so I think that he's done that a couple times already. So.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing for Valentine's? Anything special? Change the subject. I don't know. I threw you, didn't I? Let's see. All right, let's take a little break, and then there's a few more things we can talk about as we continue with MacBreak Weekly. Your picks of the week coming up too. But first, a word from Melissa, the data quality expert since 1985. Melissa offers free trials, sample codes, flexible pricing. They are a customer-first company. They care about you. They guarantee ROI and, of course, offer unlimited technical support to customers. And by the way, all over the world. Melissa's international address validation cleans and corrects street addresses worldwide. It can even do things like transliterate automatically from one system to another, for instance, from Chinese to Cyrillic. They literally have customers everywhere. You could download the free Melissa Lookups app on Google Play or the App Store. Try it out for yourself. You don't even have to sign up. There's no cost. You could use it to validate an address and personal identity in the U.S. or Canada. You can check global phone numbers. If you get a call from an international number, you can find the caller, the carrier, the geographic information. You can also check global IP address information and more. Just almost a demonstration of how amazing Melissa is. And by the way, your data is always safe with Melissa. They've achieved the highest level of security status available. They've got FedRAMP authorization. That should really reassure you. Of course, that's for government agencies, but it means everybody benefits from the higher security that's required. And as long as we're talking, I should mention Melissa's solutions and services are also GDPR, CCPA, the California Privacy Act compliant. They meet SOC 2 and HIPAA and high trust standards for information security management. Look, your data is one of your most valuable possessions. That address list, the customer or supplier list, you need to keep it up to date. Get started right now with Melissa's offer of 1,000 records cleaned for free. Go to melissa.com/twit, MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. Jon Stewart says Apple TV canceled his show because they didn't want me to say things that might get me in trouble. Really?
I thought that was a politically astute way.
They were looking out for you. Is that it? Apple cares. What we had heard is that Stewart was about to do shows that might peeve China, right? They canceled his show. He said, I wanted a place to unload thoughts as we get into this election season. I thought I was going to do it over at, they call it Apple TV Plus. It's a television enclave, very small. It's like living in Malibu. But they decided, they felt they didn't want me to say things that might get me into trouble. I think he's being a little arch. He is going to be hosting Monday episodes of his old show, The Daily Show, which I'm very glad to welcome him back to that. The problem with Jon Stewart, apparently split with Apple amicably, according to an individual. This is Variety writing, with an individual with knowledge of the situation. New York Times said the duo had disagreements over topics to be covered in the third season, including AI and China. I don't know. Look, what more can you say about this, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's lukewarm to warm, because it's not as bad as if he decided to come out swinging a month after they announced that he was not going to be continuing with the Apple TV Plus show. He's on a morning show. He's being interviewed about this thing that's launching in a day or two, and this just came up. So obviously it's still on his mind months later, or else he wouldn't have brought it up. Also,
it sounds like a sentence he had crafted earlier.
Diplomatic, not wanting to say too much or too little. Yeah. It's significant that he said it, so I don't think that there's no truth to the idea that Apple was hoping for something less controversial. Whether with the sources of that blowback that they're worried about are going to be, we can only speculate, because Jon Stewart did not say China or AI. That's from an honestly sourced New York Times post. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I couldn't help but think that, like, both Jon Stewart and John Oliver both landed from The Daily Show onto non-ad supported networks. John Oliver gleefully taking advantage of the fact they don't have any advertisers, and also they can get away with even insulting the parent company of the actual show, the network that he's on. Jon Stewart didn't work out, so I don't know. Well, a data point, let's say. I
think it was probably a mixture too. I mean, I don't think either of their shows are as good as The Daily Show was. I think that there was something magical about The Daily Show that was really fun to watch. But I only made it through a couple episodes of Jon Stewart's show on the Apple.
Same thing.
Apple TV.
I was hoping for
very
more.
earnest.
There was something lost, and John Oliver for me is sometimes a little more than I need for that. And I just
on a Sunday night that everything's awful.
There's some of them are okay. A lot of them are a little cringy because I don't feel like he kind of purports to be accurate, and he's not sometimes. And so I think that for both of them, they were funnier and better and harder hitting in some ways
on the Daily Show
than they are in the context of their own shows. And I think that there was a magic there that I think that maybe they're going back to a little bit. With Jon Stewart going back to that, because The Daily Show was one of my favorite shows, and so I was really excited when Jon moved over, and then I was not excited when I actually saw the show.
Jason Snell will agree with me that John Oliver was at his best with the Daily Bugle.
Oh, the Bugle podcast, such a great podcast. I mean, I love Last Week Tonight, and I think that I can see that it is sort of like a version of the Bugle put on TV, but also with the long part where there's 60 minutes with dick jokes, essentially.
Well put. That's exactly right.
I think they would agree. But there is the topical nature of The Daily Show, like having Jon Stewart back on a Monday night for a while to do his thing on The Daily Show. I'm looking. The first episode with him was yesterday. I look forward to watching it today on Paramount Plus, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I have to admit that I just can't. There is so much fodder on both sides this year. Sure I'm sure he said he was like, you got to give me at least one day a week.
I think that's what he said. They're doing it through the election, so I think you nailed it.
Just pound on everybody. I can just attack everybody. So.
Yeah. Apple. I know there are people who are Windows users who watch or listen to this show. I hear from them like once every 6 months. Apple is.
Why are you watching?
Because they love us.
Because we're lovable.
Apple is overhauling its entire Windows app suite, including iCloud and Apple Music. You're going to get new iCloud Music, TV, and device management apps.
Yeah.
To bring macOS music. You're getting music instead of iTunes.
Just goes to show how serious they are about Apple Music. If they're actually paying attention to Android, if they're actually paying attention to Windows experience, they're really, really, really want to make a run at this.
Yeah. I've used iCloud on Windows.
No Safari updates for Windows.
Yeah. And apparently, according to Andrew Cunningham, it is very Windows-like. He's writing in Ars Technica. He says, though Apple would clearly prefer that you buy Apple hardware to use Apple services, offering decent apps for competing ecosystems at least ensures that people who use a mix of devices, including you and me, Andy, an iPhone with a PC or an Android phone with a Mac or iPad, have the option of staying within the Apple ecosystem rather than moving over to Spotify or Dropbox or something that's truly cross-platform. Yes, it's just services are important, and they're going to.
It's hard to share music. Like I have Spotify and music, but I never use Spotify anymore, and so I'm still paying for it, but I'm not using it as much just because all my stuff got moved over, and it's more convenient on my devices. And I share stuff with my family all the time, but if I talk to somebody else, I'm like, I got to go find that on Spotify.
You almost, it's really interesting. You have to have a Spotify app if you're going to share. It feels like you almost have to have Spotify. That's the lingua franca of music sharing.
Yeah.
Apple has made an AI image tool that lets you make edits by describing them with a text prompt. It's MGIE, or MLLM guided image editing. You can use it to crop, to brighten specific areas. I don't know how do we get this?
It's not available. It's a paper that's being presented at a conference, and the paper just got published. And the demos are real. It's not even an interface demo. It really is just like a model. But the demos that they give of here's before and after, and here's the text prompt. It's like, here is a bowl of really delicious looking tomato soup, and then here's the prompt: make this more healthy. And suddenly there's like sliced zucchini in it, or there's like kind of, you take a picture of your kid, and there's someone who just happens to be walking right behind them when you take the picture, and remove the woman in the background, and boom, the woman in the background is gone.
I think this is inevitable, right? We're going to see this everywhere at some point. Make a pizza more healthy by including the included vegetable toppings.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, tomato soup, pizza, all the same. Remove the woman in the background. Let the laptop have a green web page, so it just puts a new web page in the laptop. This is kind of cool.
I mean, this is the stuff we're doing with Photoshop now all the time. Like it's just, and I use it probably at least once a day in Photoshop. Like I have little thing I want to correct. You select it, you just go take this out, put this in, add this thing. Extend is a lot. Like
absolutely.
I have something, I just need a little bit more over to one side and just extend that out. And it does, and sometimes it takes you 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 tries to get exactly what you want, but it does it.
There is a demo of this that's runnable that's on Hugging Face, so you can
good.
You can run their demo version, but yeah, of course, this is inevitable.
Yeah.
Imagine a Shlomo powered like on device iPhoto photo editor where you can just, and it's not just like not just the sort of blatant generative AI stuff. They also have things like make the sky bluer and more contrasty, and great. That's man. This is why like generative AI and AI imagery gets me so excited. The idea that something that took me a long time to learn how to do in Photoshop, an app that I paid $20 a month to use, is something that just somebody who just says, I don't like this about this photo. Can some magic genie inside this box fix that for me? And as long as you can describe it in whatever your native language is, it can do that without you having to have expensive tools or experience. I love it when technology empowers people who do not have access to tools, experience, power, whatever.
Yeah.
iOS 17.4 is adding a virtual card number feature to Apple Cash. I was all excited. I thought, well, this might be kind of like, I use Privacy, one of our former sponsors, all the time to generate one-time use numbers or to merchant-locked credit card numbers. This isn't quite like that. If you can't use, you have money in Apple Cash, but the site doesn't support Apple Pay, they will create a credit card number for you that you can use with that site. This will be coming with 17.4. It is locked to. It is a single transaction though, because it says the security code changes for every transaction.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean that is really powerful. Like I didn't it's that you can never really give anybody. You could be putting cash into your phone. You don't need to have an Apple credit card,
right? And
that you'd be able to just put stuff into Apple Cash and then create a new credit card number for every transaction especially when you're going, like I can see using this in, you go to a website, you're not sure if you really want to order that thing, but you're not sure you really want to, how dicey it is. This is a place where you put that credit card in, and the most they can do, it's gone after that. Like it's like cash. It's like cash using a credit card because they get to do that charge, they get the money, and then that's it. There's no other relationship.
Particularly when you sign up for a service that auto renews or the time trial lasts 30 days.
Oh, it's not so great.
You want, because you forget. And I'm perfectly fine with getting, we tried to renew for the full year at $173, but, it didn't go through. Could you update your payment? Like, oh, wow, I just dodged a huge bullet there.
Yeah.
And I do, for some reason, have a lot of money in my Apple Cash. I think I'm having them. That's where, I know why. That's where I put the daily cash. It just goes into the savings.
I wonder if it always feels to me like free money. If someone sends me cash, I feel like that money doesn't really exist.
Doesn't count.
Like,
Yes.
Yeah. It's like
they've increased the APY to 4.5%, so that's good.
Yeah.
I'm still $1,000 short of buying a Vision Pro, but I'm getting there, inch by inch. Maybe by the second version, I'll be able to afford one. Shot on iPhone. This is the time of year we all go around saying "Gong Hei Fat Choi," which is probably pretty embarrassing. But they did do a Chinese, because Saturday was Chinese New Year. They did do a shot on iPhone. Apple did for 15 Pro Max. It actually looks like it was shot in China, so that's kind of neat. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it's 15 minutes long. It's not an iPhone ad. You actually get like 8 minutes into it before you even see an iPhone of any kind. And even there, it's not, hey, look how much this child is improving their life by having the new iPhone 15 Pro or the whatever.
It's for the Chinese market, I would guess, yes?
Yeah, exactly. It is very, very Chinese. And it's, again, everything's shot like in the country, in the cities there, and it's very, very pretty.
Yeah,
we always put the footnote that of course it was shot with an iPhone 15, but with all those professional lighting, professional color. But damn, it is a gorgeous.
I have a feeling this nightclub is not professional lighting. It looks pretty darn good. How would you shoot a nightclub scene, Alex, and make it still look like a nightclub with professional lighting? You still have to.
You'd still shoot it in a nightclub with professional, like it's not that it's that much brighter. They're just shooting it in that environment. Right. Now what you're doing is they're shooting it in log most likely and then grading it HQ so they can grade it, and so they're, so that's.
Look how beautiful this shot is. I mean, that is stunning. The richness of the color.
I mean, all of it. I mean, it's just now, of course, like that atmosphere that you see there, that's a smoke machine. That's a hazer. There's a hazer in there. A lot of this footage, when you see the highlights,
kind of the background light reflected.
Anytime you see light rays, or some kind of glow around the.
Is it
lights,
just a smoke machine, or is there something special that they use?
It's a hazer. There's difference. There's a hazer and a smoke machine. A hazer will add a little bit of atmosphere. A smoke machine will fill it with smoke.
So a lot of times when you see a dark scene, there's a hazer involved, right? There's hazing there.
Almost every film that you see is every indoor shot, or almost every indoor shot, has some hazing. So they'll sit there and they run it just for a second or two, and then they have the guy goes like this and
waves a fan,
waves it around, wafts it so that it's.
But it's because light doesn't atmosphere doesn't. You can't light up air, so you got to give.
It creates a thickness.
Yeah,
it creates this viscosity to the scene that we're used to seeing. Actually, in fact, it was one of the reasons that we subconsciously will look at a movie and go, that doesn't look like it was a big budget movie, and sometimes
there's no hazer,
left all the hazing out. And so but
it's cheap. Get a hazer, kids. That's our
they're
tip.
Not very expensive. I just want to say that they're
well. A lot of times I'll try with a camera, and I'll shoot, and light just bouncing off a wall is just not the same as the volumetric light you get. And sometimes, if you're lucky and light's streaming through a window, there's enough dust and stuff in the air to get some haze. Yeah. But obviously, a hazer. I might just get up. Are there pocket hazers?
I got one in the garage. I
feel like I should just have one with me.
I have what's really good at what hazers are really good for is if you really want to do lip sync at home. You get some DMX lighting, and you get the hazer, and you turn it on, and it takes it to the next level.
We have a hazer. Jon is pointing out a hazer. We have one in the studio. Why don't we use it more? I wouldn't mind a little hazy volumetric lighting.
Is that all I'll say is if you're in the studio, just make sure that it's water-based and not oil-based.
Oh, so God, I know. That's awful.
If it's water-based, it's pretty great. If it's oil-based, everything gets a little sticky.
Little
not the first time, but a couple times, so yeah.
Do you know that Spinal Tap owes its origins to like a hazing / smoke machine?
What?
Because the core members of the group were on some sort of like Saturday special, whatever show, not as necessarily Spinal Tap per se, but as a band. And they did this Busby's Berkeley thing where they're lying on the floor as they're playing the guitar, and a smoke machine was above them and was ripping hot smoking oil onto their foreheads, and they realized that this is exactly what if this were like our lives every single time we played music. So
little consumer heads up from Apple Insider: the $300 Vision Pro developer strap, don't get it. It's just a USB device. Do get it. Do get it.
Well, most people shouldn't get it. I got one.
$300. Why?
First off, for me, I have to take screenshots of things, and the screenshot wirelessly is really bad, and wired, it's good. But no, there was a new story today. It can do Thunderbolt. It can do DisplayPort.
Oh.
It is not currently enabled to do much other than USB 2 speeds of very slow connections, because it's starting somewhere, but it's capable of actually enormous bandwidth and functionality. And the question is just, when will that happen? No, regular person out there, don't buy it, right? Like, don't. But I bought one because I talked to a friend of mine who was taking a whole bunch of screenshots, tethered, where you cannot have the foveated rendering, so they look really good. And he said, I had to reboot the Vision Pro all the time when I was doing the wireless captures, and the wired captures have been solid. So for somebody like me who's in the business, this makes sense. But just to be clear, the capabilities of this thing are actually way beyond what's currently enabled, which is not super surprising given that the product just shipped. But apparently it's got a lot of capability inside of it, including Thunderbolt capability, according to the story I read today. So
yes, 9 to 5 Mac actually had the debunker, Jeff Benjamin, said that, so this would be software enabled then, right? You could enable it in software.
Yeah, it's all in there. The Apple just hasn't done it yet, but it opens up some interesting possibilities that DisplayPort support. If you have the ability to do some, live video out, or maybe even do some video in from a Mac. For development purposes, I think there's a lot more for this product. It's never going to be something anybody wants who isn't doing something very technical with it. But I got mine. Now I got a stupid dongle off the side of my thing.
But you have USB-C.
It's the job.
Yeah.
At last, it's a real Apple product. You've got a dongle.
A $300 dongle that can do more than Apple admits.
It's because it's because they integrated the really nice audio pods onto the hardware. It means that if you swap the strap out for a different strap, the audio pod comes with. So you have to get another one that has got the audio pod, the connection for the head, for the different bands, and then on the back of it, there's a USB-C thingy.
Stephen Troughton Smith,
which doesn't power it, by the way. You still have to power it on the other side. Wonderful.
Stephen Troughton Smith says, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if the reason the developer strap doesn't do a whole lot right now were because the mechanism for approving USB devices access in the UI as on iOS is just if-deffed out for 1.0.
It's not there. Yeah,
easy to,
a lot of 1.0
be
stuff,
easy to, if undef it, the OS seems to have everything it needs to USB host.
Yeah.
And in fact, 10 base T, 100 megabit Ethernet. So lots
give
more.
me a Thunderbolt port and I'll tape it to my back and we'll be in business.
Wow. That's cool. Full Thunderbolt 4 cross-domain connection. 100 base T and USB 2 are two of the links. There's also DisplayPort and USB 3.
Well, it's telling that the port that ships with it, the thing that ships with it only has like a few pins on it to bring the audio out there.
Right.
This thing's got way more pins on both sides. So obviously the Vision Pro itself, that is the access point for a lot for Thunderbolt and USB access is in that one side of the band. And it's great that they made this available, right? Because I'm sure they had these inside Apple the whole time. And now developers and people like me who take lots of videos and screenshots and stuff will be able to connect it to. And maybe down the road, I'll be able to bring up, wear a portable podcast rig with a proper wired microphone and who knows what else on my, what utility vest of items that I carry around with me with it.
There might be a new category, a Vision Pro streamer. You could be the first, Jason.
Oh boy, I won't be.
I will. I'll be that person.
Oh, Alex absolutely will. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was the guy who went around with a camera on a stick and got crowd surfed at South by Southwest. Maybe I'll be doing it. You could do spatial. Leo. You could do spatial video though if you did that, right? Could you stream
but nobody
that?
could see it.
Well, other people in Vision Pros can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
once you get to critical mass, everything's possible.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably shoot some spatial, like just testing it, shooting some spatial at GDC, the game developers, and then that's prepping for
he's already thinking about it. Kids. Yep.
But we're already kind of going down that path. But that's just with the phone and with with some spatial cameras.
You should get some
but
Vision Pros.
Not with the headset.
I think a whole team of people jumping out of a van wearing Vision Pros be very exciting.
The streaming part's the hard part right now. We don't have all that data. I mean,
that's why you need this dongle. Then you hook it up to a Ustream.
Enough by itself, but we'll see.
Alex, I wonder who's going to be the first to come up with a Video Village app for the Pro.
So
that just seems like a slam dunk.
I have a screen capture.
What's
somewhere.
that? What's a Video Village app?
Hold on. It's being able to see a bunch of screens all at the same time of your production.
Like video feeds, yeah.
And let's see. There's a.
So like you're in a truck watching the Thursday Night Football. And
this was
see it all.
Right.
Yeah.
In our in office hours. Let me see if I can pull this over. We had on Sunday. Where we do it all in Zoom actually. But this is one of our CJ Covell, who is in. He had this up. Let's see if I can pull this up. So this is CJ's. So this is what you're seeing below is his actual desk, and what you're seeing above is Vision Pro, and so that is him pulling the control room for Zoom. This is Zoom's Zoom.
This is like 3 control. Stream Decks taped together. Is that what he's got there?
Oh, that's common. We all do.
I thought at first, that's nice. He's got a switcher. No, it's a bunch of Stream Decks.
Well, he's got the switchers right behind it. So you see a little ATEM Mini behind that. And then he's got these screens all up there. So so CJ was testing this and he sent this and I was like, oh man.
That's cool.
So that's and there's already folks. I mean, people have been doing this in the Oculus, in the Meta headsets for a while. So the Quests have been, so you can get those screens in there, but that's it from the Vision Pro from Sunday. Yeah.
So you ready, John Ashley, to do the whole show from a Vision Pro instead of behind the console there?
So you're saying you're going to buy me a Vision Pro?
No.
Just give me yeah. I mean, you offer.
Bring your own Vision Pro. We don't have the means yet. We don't have the ways to do it. We don't have enough Stream Decks, but someday We will. Actually, you would have to have. I guess ATEM has a software interface that you could project into. Yeah. So you can do it with the ATEM.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe, John. Just hang in there. Depends how many people join Club Twit tonight.
So you're saying we need? Okay,
I'm telling you right now, if you're not a member of Club Twit and you want John Ashley to do this entire show in a Vision Pro, in your hands. We only need 500 more people to join, and John Ashley you could save John Ashley's life. You're gonna save our lives. That's for sure. We like every other mainstream media, alternative media, and podcast network in the world, we're suffering. Advertisers have discovered Marquez Brownlee, and all the money's going to Marquez. So if you like what we do and you'd like us to keep going, I know we're kind of an old-fashioned operation compared to that. You could join the club. You get some benefits, ad-free versions of all the shows, additional shows that we don't put out in public, Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent, the Hands on Windows show with Paul Thurrott, Untitled Linux show with Jonathan Bennett and company. We have Home Theater Geek, Scott Wilkinson's great show about AV. All of that in iOS Today now, inside the club, plus the Twit Plus feed with action before and after each show. I think there was a long, interesting conversation before this show, as a matter of fact, that will make it into the Twit Plus feed. My favorite part is the Discord. Love hanging out there. It is a great social community made up of Twit fans, but talking about everything a geek would be interested in. All of that for $7 a month. And mostly the good feeling knowing that you're helping John Ashley get his helping this poor lad get his Vision Pro. No. How many? Let's see. We'd only need 30.
We have to consider tax. Don't forget tax and accessories. So let's say 600.
600 new members would do it. I'd like to see 1,000 new members right now. That's all I want. Go right now to YouTube. I'm sorry, twit.tv, because we're not. I mean, we are on YouTube, but we're not a big influencer kind of operation here. Twit. And you don't want us to be, I think. Twit.tv/club twit. We'd love to have you as a member. Picks of the week coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. Let's start the picks of the week. I'll do one. I never do a pick of the week. Every once in a while, this is a silly pick, but I run menu bar all the time on my laptop because that notch, if you have a lot of items in your menu, they can actually, I don't know why Apple lets this happen, go under the notch and they disappear. Now, Bartender solves that, and I love Bartender, and it's a great solution, but it is $20. Here's a command line that could maybe help you. This is from Oni Hakala, built-in workaround for applications hiding under the MacBook Pro notch. Turns out I love terminal commands on the Mac. There is a defaults command that will do this. Change the padding. Defaults space dash current host right dash global domain NS stands for next step. It's still there, folks. NS status item selection padding. And it's a -int. 6 is a good start, but you can make it even smaller. NS status item spacing int 6. You change those. You can. I'll tell you. I'll put these in the show notes so you can try it on your own. And he actually has, he or she has a picture of what their menu bar looks like when you reduce the padding. There is a lot of padding when you look at it. There's a lot of padding. If you
use previous pick Bartender,
I love Bartender.
Just do this inside Bartender, but you don't. This is free because it's just right into the default.
Yeah, as Oni points out, Bartender's €20. This is free. Now, like I said, I paid for Bartender because I love all the features of Bartender. It just folds it up underneath a little bracket.
The only disadvantage, of course, is that if you keep it'll solve your current problem. Like if your menu bar is exactly where exactly. If you keep adding stuff to it, obviously now you're adding more stuff.
Only mentions that
Ghosts and Winds.
Yeah. This is padding 6, so there's some room for more. I mean, it's pretty usable even with 6. You could go down more. And as a little bonus feature, you can also revert by deleting the global domain NS status item selection padding and NS status item spacing setting, and it'll bring you back to the default. Love that. That's my pick of the week. A command line. A little terminal command line thing. No biggie. How about you, Mr. Snell? What you got?
Back in 1954, they were doing a lot of 3D movies, and they thought it was going to be the bee's knees. I mean, you know what?
Yes,
it wasn't the bee's knees.
No? Oh, that was the red and green glasses era. The one where they're all wearing
dual strip polarized 3D. So guess what happened? They convinced Grandmaster director Alfred Hitchcock to shoot a movie in stereo, and he did.
What?
And by the time it came out, nobody wanted to watch a 3D movie. So other than some limited theater releases in 54 and a re-release that was very briefly in some theaters in 1980, nobody has seen the 3D version of Dial M for Murder.
You're kidding.
But guess what?
What?
If you buy it on Apple TV as a purchase, one of the versions that you get is the 3D version to watch on the Vision Pro.
And is it red blue or it's actually
it was shot. I'm sorry if I'm going to interrupt only because I saw it when it was re-released in its original format at the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline, where it wasn't red green. It was where you're using polarized.
It was the real deal.
There are actually two projectors in the lamp house.
Wow.
And when you see 3D in a big, huge old movie theater with real color. Oh my God, this was a great movie because it wasn't one of these Dr. Shaw. Oh, look, would you like some coffee? Woo!
Yeah, exactly.
He was thinking in terms of like James Cameron, like here is how I can get people to, I'm going to cause some tension by having something happening in the background and put something in the foreground that you can't quite see
It's
around.
A very good movie. It's worth
it's
seeing.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
And you talk about, so not a conversion, actually shot stereo. I would say you put this next to Hugo, which was directed by Martin Scorsese, these few examples of properly shot by among the top 10 directors of all time. There are a couple, and this is one of them. And the part that I can't believe is there was a 3D Blu-ray release a few years ago when they were doing that. But now it's just in the library. It's one of the 200 3D movies that are currently in Apple's library for purchase or rental. So Dial M for Murder, watch Hitchcock as was intended in a VR helmet.
Oh my God, that might actually be worth buying a Vision Pro to do.
Oh my God, I'm suddenly having that terrible thought. I have $3,500. I'm going to make it.
Hey, Micah, don't send back the Vision Pro till I can watch this movie, okay? Wow. Very good tip. Thank you. Andy Anako.
Yes.
Pick of the week.
I'm really excited about this one. One of my favorite and most important productivity tools ever was an app called Wunderlist, because it was just so simple as a list manager.
From the Wunderkind.
Whatever it is.
And then Microsoft bought it.
Microsoft bought it and then said, thank you for your database of users. We don't need any of your code. Goodbye. And so the creators were seething clearly because they started working on, okay, guess what? We're going to kick your butt, Microsoft, to do. They just released Superlist today. Oh. And I've been using it all morning. And the highest praise I can give any new piece of software that I try is that I filed 6 bug reports, but have no intention of slowing down using this tool.
Wow.
Like there are a million to-do list and task managers. There are a million notes apps. There are only a couple that work the way that you personally happen to work. And Superlist seems to be exactly that for me. I need something that can quickly capture ideas and tasks from wherever I am and make it not a fuss about it, not having, okay, now that you've said buy sugar, we need you to add a context to it and also a team frame. Like, no, just remember that I just want to remember I need sugar. So it makes it very, very easy to capture that stuff. Not only that, though, however, your lists can be a mixture of like what you would expect to be like list type actionable items and like markup style text. So as a result, it's not just, you don't have to keep doing things like, here's something that I want to write about in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't have to like make each little note to myself into a different actionable item. I can just have one action item that is just write about this. And then I have or I have child items underneath it that are, here are some resources. And here is like a weak outline of bullet list of stuff that I want to mention while I'm going through that. Also, it's really beautifully made. It's if you're using Ulysses, you'll be very familiar to it. It's a very left to right sort of interface where like every list and every project and every group that you have is on the left. As you keep drilling down, more panes open to the right and scroll, so that it's very, very easy to be inside one task, but be able to access other tasks really, really quickly. The other thing that makes it a big, big win for me is that it is multi-platform. Okay, it's iOS. I will say that it's not an iPad app. It will run as a blown up iPhone app on the iPad. It's terrible. But good news is that you can have a much better version of it on the iPad if you run the web version of that app. And there's also an Android app. So no matter what device I have in front of me, I can work on this dashboard of ideas and schedules and stuff absolutely immediately. It does have some bugs, so be aware of that. Maybe if you want to action on this, maybe in a week, because I filed 6 and I've already gotten feedback from the makers on 3 of them, so they're clearly like on the ball for all of this. And it's also it's very much in the same vein as the original Wunderlist. That if you are just using it for personal stuff, sort of personal business or personal tasks, it's free, and they say it's going to be free on that level forever. You can of course use it in work group settings at the free tier. You can share up to 5 lists with up to 5 people. I think. Yes, 5 share lists with 5 people. It's also integrated with Gmail, Google Calendar, Microsoft To Do, email integrations. If you go for the Pro package at $10 a month, and that's billed monthly, you get a discount if you buy it for the year. Unlimited shared lists, up to 25 people. You can have 500 megabyte individual uploads, 250 gigs of storage, a couple other features. It also integrates with a small number of apps right now. It does integrate with Slack, Notion, Google Calendar, GitHub, a bunch of other things. Obviously, this is just early days. I'm hoping that they'll have an integration with Ulysses earlier on, because really, after 10 minutes, I was easily imagining just having this on one side of my iPad screen. That was before I downloaded the app on my iPad and realized it was terrible. And also having like Ulysses on the other half of my screen and just moving stuff that I'm writing from, hey, this is something I want to write eventually, to, okay, this is now in the active planning, active writing stages. Like I said, try it out for yourself, because again, these things are really individual, but I could not be happier to see this tool. I love it when I try something. My expectations were high because, like I said, I was a big fan of Wunderlist, but I immediately said, here is a list of the problems that this solves for me, and here is how fast I think I can get through some stuff that was challenging. Now that I have this, I can easily imagine this being a central role in like my daily work.
It almost makes me wish I worked with a team. It looks like the team integration is really cool. Like having messages for your team and stuff like that. This is really nice. Yeah.
And makes it easy to separate. Here's my personal list with here are shared lists.
Yeah.
It's real. All the basics are. It's a little bit like Vision Pro, where it's not 100% there yet, but everything that is there is choice, and proves that the future decisions are probably going to be as smart as the decisions that they've already made. Yeah. You go to superlist.com to sign up. As I said, it's absolutely free and free forever, so long as you only got 5 people that you're working with.
Integrates with Gmail, Google Calendar, Slack, Linear, Notion, Microsoft To Do, of course, and GitHub. That's cool. Wow. The Wunderkinds are back. Having spent all the money they got from Microsoft on some fabulous Berlin kind of kofta, now they have to get back to work and make another list. Yep. But you know what? This is second generation. You figure they're gonna be way ahead of the game on this. That's cool.
Yeah. And they also got $15 million worth of funding on top of that. So
wow.
It's not as though this isn't just a side project. This is clearly like their next business.
Neat.
So.
Very nice. Yeah, it looks really good. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
And so one of the cool things that Condor Blue does is that they partner with creators and just say, rather than us figure out how to build a product, why don't you figure out how to build a product? Tell us what you want to do. And in this case, they partnered with a really great creator, Tyler Stallman. And Tyler is on, he does a lot on YouTube and TikTok and Twitter. And they're solving an interesting problem, which is that when we go 9x16, how do you get power and data and everything else out of your phone now that we can record it, to an external hard drive and everything else? And so they built this, what they're calling the I think it's called, what do they call this? The Stallman
clamp.
Stallman clamp for vertical.
So the big thing is that this is built. It's it's not the cheapest clamp you're going to find. It's $75, but it is. So a couple things. It's got a 40 gig right angle, which is a big deal. Like when you're trying to find these, a lot of times you're not sure whether you're going to buy them or not, because you don't know if they're really going to be 40 gigs. So it's a right angle USB-C. So that means you can hook it to your drive, and then you're going to figure out, where am I going to put my drive? And of course, there's a quarter 20 right here. So there's a quarter 20 right here where you can put your drive in. There's a quarter 20 on the top and on the bottom. It's stiff. Like when you put it in, you don't feel like your phone is going to fall out. And so it's a really, this is a, like, I want to do production at 9:16. And so, if you're doing stuff for TikTok and YouTube and everything else, like this is a production level clamp. And let's see if I put it up here like this, but you can see how it kind of, if I get my eyes out of my Sony's, but you can see how it now. See, I'm going to ruin it by turning it sideways so I can show it to you like that.
There you go.
But anyway, but on the vertical, and of course it's got a quarter 20 on the bottom, so you can put it on a tripod or anything else that you'd like to put it on. And so it's pretty, very, very well built, I guess, and I think that's the thing that is a complaint of mine, is I want clamps that I'm using, whether it's 9:16 or 16:9, to be, metal and stiff. And I'm putting a $2,000 piece of hardware into it. I'd like it to make sure that it stays there. And it's just really, really well built. So that's my pick. Stallman clamp.
When I'm on the road, I use my iPhone as my camera because it's really among the best cameras I've got. I don't use it for anything else, but I think this would be a really handy thing to have. I might send one to my mom's house.
Well, the big thing is that when you do it on 9:16, what this solves is when you clamp all the other clamps that might handle 9:16, they block off the bottom, that USB-C, so you can't leave it powered and you can't get a hard drive onto it if you want to record, because, now you might want to record log, Apple ProRes in 9:16, and you can't do that, to an external drive without a clamp like this one, because the other clamps are all going to block that bottom access, and so this one's really specific to the 9:16 needs, but you could turn it to the side as well, and it'll still, it still works to the side.
It looks nice like it's also specific to the 15 because of the little C it has for the camera bump.
This one I think is built for the 15.
Yeah.
Like
you really want it for that phone.
It may have had an adapter. I have to go back and look at the box. I just pulled it out.
They say for the 15. He says.
Yeah.
It. So
I mean, what I will say is that the production, how I view production on the iPhone, has changed dramatically in the 15. Like the 15 it's not like a minor update from the 14. With the USB-C connection, with the added features inside of the lenses and everything else, it's just a different camera. And the USB-C has probably made the biggest difference, because now we can plug in hard drives, we can plug in, interfaces, audio interfaces. I was, recording something in last week, and I was, plugging in a sound devices interface for for instruments and everything else into my phone. And I find myself, I keep on grabbing this FX30 is a great. The Sony that I'm using is a great camera for my webcam, but every time I take it off and I start shooting with it, I find myself very quickly just going back to my phone. Like, do I really need this right now? Because this is going to add a lot more to my workflow, and so it's a lot of these tools are starting to become pretty industrial, and because of the Apple, I think the big thing that's happened is because Apple did a keynote with the phone. The race, I think that NAB is going to be super exciting to see what everyone's building for the phone, because they're, Tilta is building a new rig based on the guys that worked on that keynote. Blue Condor is going crazy, small rig, and then there's going to be lots of other ones that are going to build for it. So it's really going to be an interesting time. But this kind of device where you're seeing something that doesn't feel like a toy, it feels like a real piece of hardware, is part of that growth.
Nice. Condor Blue with a K, KONDORBLUE.com, the Stallman clamp for vertical filmmakers.
They have a whole section here. I don't know if they have it on the website. There is hold on, let's see if they have it on the website. There is a whole, when I went to see, I was in Film Tools in LA, which is like one of my favorite places in LA. It's Film Tools. Film Tools and Location Sound are like the two places that I always want to go visit just to hang out. And I was going through and looking for something, and I came around the back, and Condor Blue has a whole Justine Ezerick section.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things, and it's not blue, it's pink. So.
Yes, it ought to be. She's featured in their highlight reel. So, yep, good enough for Justine. Is that Emery Wells on the right? No.
I don't think so. No. But I think that what I think they're doing really well is to really partner with the
people
creators rather than it's really building something that they're going to get behind, because when you ask a creator for input, they're going to give you one set of ideas. When you say we're going to put your name on it, they give you a whole different set of ideas.
Yeah,
because and they're much more particular. I think the person you thought there was Gerald Undone, who's also an incredible creator, has got some stuff on there as well.
That's right, Gerald Undone. But iJustine's signature cables, they're all in. I think we've talked about this before.
It's funny.
I feel like we have.
I think it was, because I think I noticed it when I was in film
cable
tools.
Cases.
There was a whole section. There was just something about seeing Justine's stuff in film at Film Tools was awesome.
That's hysterical. Get the complete set. Thank you very much, Alex Lindsay. OfficeHours.global, the place to go if you want to see what's going on in the world of multimedia production or Super Bowl 58 graphics.
We did get it back up. It came back. I don't know what you saw before, but it is playing there. So I don't know why yours isn't playing, because ours is playing.
Oh, I can watch it on YouTube. That's what it is. So you have to click the link and then go to YouTube. You can't watch it on your site. It's not that. It's a weird thing that YouTube sometimes does. There you are.
Yeah.
This was fun to watch. I watched you doing it live. It was really interesting.
We love doing these teardowns.
Yeah. Now, if I do this, I can't show that because then they'll take me down. So let's go back to the video and available button. Thank you, Alex. OfficeHours.global. And of course, don't forget graymatter.show. Always some great guests on that Michael Krasny interview. The Brain on Psychedelics this week.
It was really good. It was a really, it's interesting to listen to an actual researcher talk about the real details of all the, and there's what he talked about in the show is that he said the change in, dealing with depression and so on and so forth with some of these drugs. He said the last time we had something that made this big of a difference was when we realized that citrus would help when you were on a boat.
Wow.
It's a huge change, because he's like talking about, oh yeah, the depression goes away in 2.5 days. And Michael was like, well, it gets better. And he goes, no, it goes away.
Wow.
and so it's an entirely different, and he's breaking down, how it affects the brain's plasticity. And of course, these are he's not recommending that these become.
Oh, he's a physician. He's a psychiatrist. He's not, he's
not saying
party time.
Yeah, he's like, this is a controlled substance. He's not saying that everyone should use it, but he is saying that we should be using it in the medical arena to make a difference. And it was a really, it's a really fascinating conversation.
There seems to be more and more evidence of that. It's really, I can't wait to listen to that. Graymatter.show. Andy Anako, you're going to be on the radio, right?
Not this week, but next week, next Thursday at 12:40. Go to WGBHnews.org, listen to it live or later, or to hear any of my previous tech news discussions, conversations, rantings for 20, 30 minutes.
I should have worn my NFC championship hat. You're wearing your Giants World Series champion hat.
I'm sure. Nothing against Kansas City. It was a great game. You both have reasons to be very, very happy. But I decided to show my sympathies. Also, it's the nicest hat I have at this point.
It's a great looking hat.
I need to buy a new Red Sox hat, because now it looks like now I look like the gas station attendant on Dukes of Hazzard, and that's with that hat on. So
it's only a few more weeks till pitchers and catchers report. You're gonna
the finest sentence in English. Or I'll say there is no finer sentence than pitchers and catchers report.
Yes. Pitchers and catchers report this month. Opening day is March 28th. It's a nice early opening day. So I know you're a Giants fan also, Mr. Jason Snell. You'll find him at sixcolors.com. Have you gone down to Arizona for spring training ever?
I have a few times.
Yeah. That's fun.
It's fun. At this point, it used to be like a really kind of out of the way thing, and now it's just an industry. The planes fill up, the fares from here to Phoenix are really expensive, and the tickets are expensive. Like it's a whole thing, but it's fun, and it's nice if you're coming from someplace cold, especially to go to someplace that is not cold usually, which is Phoenix.
I've been down to in the old days where you go to the Pink Pony and you see every player would be there, and it was really,
I go to Don and Charlie's. All those places are gone basically. Like it's a different scene, but
it's very
the city of
popular
Scottsdale
now.
manages to still be basically like it's a city, but it's also a bar essentially. Is
Pitchers
how
and
that
catchers
works,
report today.
They're reporting now.
Today. Tomorrow's the
Get
first
that Super
workout.
Bowl out of the way. Forget
it. It's over. Football's over. Let's talk about baseball. Sixcolors.com, the place to go. Read Jason's review of the Vision Pro. And he also did a whole... No, he didn't do the whole show in the Vision Pro.
We just did a little clip. It's on YouTube at the Upgrade Podcast YouTube channel if you want to watch just the 8 minutes or whatever we did with our personas on, and lots of Vision Pro coverage on the Upgrade Podcast this week and last if people want to hear more about Vision Pro.
Next week, your 500th episode.
Next week is episode 500. We do a thing where on the hundreds, the last couple hundred, where we do a draft, a prediction draft of what will be true in 100 episodes. Next week we'll be scoring our choices from episode 400 and making our predictions for episode 600.
That sounds like fun.
So that'll be good.
That's really awesome. Thank you, Jason Snell. Thank you, Andy Anako. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. Thanks to our Club Twit members for making this show possible. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. I mentioned that because you can watch us stream it live. We thought maybe we'd put that behind the paywall, but unfortunately, Discord's video options are so terrible. We decided now we're going to put it on YouTube too. So when the show starts, we start streaming youtube.com/twit. We stop streaming as soon as the show's over. So you don't get the interstitial stuff unless you're a club member. But if you want to watch us do it live, you can. And that's true for all the shows that we put out in public. Especially true for Ask the Tech Guys because we take live calls during that show. So we need to have a live stream for you. After the fact, on-demand versions of this show available at the website, twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel devoted to MacBreak Weekly, so you can see the video there. Particularly useful if you want to share a clip or a little bit or, show somebody what we're talking about. That helps us too, so please share away. The other thing that helps us is if you subscribe. That way you'll get every episode automatically. Find your favorite podcast player and subscribe. And, of course, you can always join Club Twit at twit.tv/clubtwit. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Now it is my sad and solemn duty to tell you time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, but your game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.